What is up, guys? My name is Carl Diamond. Welcome back to my MMA channel. If you're watching this on the day it comes out, Saturday, then it is UFC London Day, guys. So cannot wait. The weather is perfect for it as well. Of course, I'm not in London, but I will be watching the whole card, and I cannot wait. What a weekend of MMA we have upon us. But it started last night at the O2, Indigo, but still the O2, with Cage Warriors 134 in what turned out to be an incredible card. So if you were there as a little pre-fight thing for London, then I'm sure you had an incredible time, because the fights certainly delivered, and then some. So this is my little aftermath piece that I've done as soon as I've woken up after watching Cage Warriors. So let's get into the card and I'll recap everything you might have missed. So because of working when I do, I didn't actually get home in time for the prelims. Prelims of Cage Warriors, you can never sleep on them. They always deliver, so always make sure to check in for them early. Both fights ended by incredible finishes. An anaconda choke for Kingsley Crawford was amazing, and that knockout in the first fight, I don't know how to say the guy's name, Mr. Kavanagh, we'll call him, that makes it easy. They played them during the broadcast because there was a lot of finishes on this card, let me tell you. So and they were incredible as well. So the card started with a bang, and it carried on like that straight into the main card. So our Cage Warriors 134 main card opened up with Ben Ellis versus Nick Bagley. It was the only fight on the whole event out of 7 fights that went the distance. Maybe the fight of the night. There were some incredible performances, but I'd say probably the best fight because it had some back and forth momentum to it. The thing that first kind of struck me about the card is I've never been to the Indigo as a fan, but as someone watching it on TV, I love the way the Indigo looks for these Cage Warriors events. The way that all of the crowd is in one side compared to where the cage is. That walkway with the lights. I just think it looks incredible. It really gives it a big night feel when you're in the O2, even if it is the smaller arena. So I love that from the start. But the fight itself, I wrote in my notes, welcome to Cage Warriors, because this is what you get, man. Incredibly even matchup, it seemed. Nick Bagley looked incredible in the first round, so fast, just catching Ben Ellis every time on the end of the combinations, because they were both just trading. And I remember before the fight started, Ben Ellis in the sort of promo package spoke about how both of them didn't want to take a step back, and whoever would be the first person to take that backward step would end up losing the fight. And that's kind of what happened, really. He weathered a big storm from Nick Bagley in that first round. And then Bagley hit a huge takedown right at the start of the second round. I thought, man, Bagley is so fast. If he can keep this up, this guy is a specimen. But eventually it started to catch up with him. Ben Ellis just stayed composed. He stayed pushing him back against the cage. His jab probably won him the fight. He picked up the second and third rounds, just walking Bagley down and constantly hitting him. I mean, he was beating him up at points. The cuts on Bagley's face were insane. They even called the doctor in at one point just to check on him. Great refereeing by Rich Mitchell, as always. But yeah, really good performance from Ben Ellis. Nick Bagley's a guy that I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for, because if he can sort that pacing a little bit out, the guy was incredible for as long as he could keep that tempo up. But Ben Ellis got the win, well deserved, and a great fight. Up next on the main card, we have one of the fights that was scheduled for this card that was mixed around and matched opponents like crazy. Tobias Harila, rather, I think took about 3 or 4 different opponents in the last 2 weeks. But he eventually had this fight against Decky McAleenan, and he got the win in the first round. It was a really bullying performance from Tobias Harila, like, just didn't let Decky get into any sort of groove, just kept walking him down and bullying his way into range with these big shots. He caught him with a beautiful knee at one point that was kind of the beginning of the end, and then his shot selection for the finish was absolutely beautiful. Just real short punches, mixing up his targets to keep Decky guessing, and then he gets the finish in like 2 minutes of the first round. So Tobias Harila, that was a really good performance, a real statement after having so many opponent switches on him. But he's a fun fighter, man. That walkout with the mask is always good fun as well, gets the crowd hyped up. So yeah, another great performance on this card. Trying to keep that Cage Warriors main card momentum going was, of course, George Hardwick. And if you're going to bet on a man to keep a fight card's momentum going, you bet on the Hardwick brothers, always. He's fighting Lucas Copera, who, again, late notice replacement opponent. I'm absolutely gutted that George Hardwick didn't get the Mehdi Ben Lakhdar fight for that world title. That would have been absolutely incredible, and I just want to see that remade, to be honest, because that's incredible. Or potentially George Hardwick, Joe McColgan, either. That's a great fight as well. I thought this was a really smart fight from George Hardwick, especially he knew that his opponent was coming in on late notice. He knew that it was a catchweight bout. So the first round, Capera really went grappling heavy, a lot of clinch work. But Hardwick just stayed composed. He wasn't taking any damage. He wasn't in any positions that were too bad. Just really let Capera wear himself out. And then that second round, it really showed. Capera taking huge breaths at the start of the second round. And George Hardwick just started putting it on him. It got to a point where it was like George Hardwick is one clean shot away from finishing this guy, and then it came that incredible knee, that huge left hand, which is a work of art. I need to see that as a Twitter video later. I'm sure it is up on Cage Warriors. They always post the highlights up, so you can go check those out on Twitter if you want. And the fight was stopped with Capera just taking shots against the fence. And like I said, really smart performance from George Hardwick. This is a tough one, taking fights on late notice when you've been preparing for a title fight, and then to fight a guy who's stepping in for his Cage Warriors debut. It's a little bit it's not ideal. Lucas Capera has got a lot of fights, man. He was 10-6 at the time, now 10-7. And he just didn't have enough in the tank to keep that going against George Hardwick, whose cardio is crazy. But yeah, really smart fight to just ride out that first round and then put it on him in the second. So yeah, roll on the title opportunity for George Hardwick. In the co-main event, we had the return of Will Curry, who's the guy who I've really enjoyed watching in Cage Warriors. Obviously, he had those two really good fights with Christian Leroy Duncan that he came up short in. But Christian Leroy Duncan's fighting for the belt, man. He's no joke. So I don't think that takes away too much from his stock. I wasn't that excited for this fight at middleweight, to be honest, just because Patrick Valle, he had a record of 12-12. Like I want Will Curry to get that momentum back, but I wasn't really bothered about the opponent. So for me, it just comes down to how impressive does Will Curry look, because I knew he was going to win, probably in dominant fashion, but how impressive is he going to look? And he looked pretty damn impressive. He rocked him in like 10 seconds and then kicked him in the face. And I was like, okay, all right, yeah, we got this kind of one going. I'm glad. I don't want to see a decision win where Will Curry just gets that win no matter what. You know, put it on this guy, and he did, just relentless on the ground, and eventually got that finish in the first round about 3 minutes in. So yeah, like I said, I wasn't that bothered about this fight. For me, it was just how does Will Curry look, and how dominant can he get this win? And he made short work of this guy. So fair play to Will Curry, and excited to see him back in there with an opponent who can really test him. Finally, we got to our late notice main event with James Hendon stepping in to face Jordan Vucenic after Paul Hughes was forced to pull out of the fight. There was some interesting narratives going in here with James Hendon being able to implement his game plan on Jordan Vucenic. And I thought it was quite an interesting fight. And the first round gave people a lot to talk about. You know, James Hendon did a really good job of making the opportunities count where he could back Vucenic back, which was always when Vucenic threw a kick, or I think he threw a knee at one point, and Hendon just grabbed onto it. Vucenic defended really well, man. The guy is a smart fighter. He really didn't take too much damage, didn't put himself in I mean, there were some difficult positions, but he never let them get dangerous positions. So he kind of just rode the round out. He kept saying to Mark Goddard that he's absolutely fine and stuff. So it was kind of like, okay, I know what you're going to do. Let's reset. So I made in my notes about Vucenic just needs to keep on the jab and stuff like that. That was really working for him. Maybe take a break off of the kicks unless you're going to set him up with a lot of punches. And then he just saw that opportunity to take Hendon's back while stood. So he ends up with the kind of backpack position with Hendon stood up and gets the choke, which I was incredibly impressed by. I love Jordan Vucenic as a fighter. I think he's really interesting. He's got a very well-rounded skill set, and he just seems very calculated in there. But that was kind of what I was missing in these last few fights. Obviously, he had the split decision with Paul Hughes and the split decision over Morgan Charrier. So I needed a statement, some killer instinct, and that's exactly what he did. He took that opportunity as soon as it presented itself and got a standing rear naked choke, which I don't think anyone could have seen coming, especially with this fight being on late notice. So that's kind of how it ended the night, really. Really happy for Jordan Vucenic to get that win. James Hendon, I'm sure, will come again, man. He's got loads of talent, and we need to get that Paul Hughes fight. And I've seen a lot of people calling for Vucenic to get a UFC call up, which obviously a win over Paul Hughes and a win over Morgan Charrier, and then a title defense. You know, most fighters, it would make sense, but man, I really want to see that Paul Hughes fight, because I think both of them are going to the UFC. Let's get that 5 rounds in before they go. I suppose, in a way, if Jordan goes now, you know that Paul's going to go in the next year or so. So that way they both get there sooner rather than later. But I feel like this is the perfect time for that matchup, and I can't wait to see that fight. So I'm really hoping it gets booked, maybe in Ireland, as Graham Boylan announced they'll be going back to Ireland very soon. So yeah, that was Cage Warriors 134. Only one fight went to a decision. It was probably the fight of the night. Incredible night of fights, as always with Cage Warriors. I'm incredibly jealous if you're in London today and you went to the event last night and you've got the UFC tonight. But I'm going to be watching from home, making a ton of notes on every single fight so that I can do a recap piece for it tomorrow morning. But yeah, thank you for checking out this video. Hit subscribe if you want to check out some more of my content, because I'm going to have a bunch of these aftermath pieces coming up. I really enjoy these recaps, so if you enjoy them, then let me know. Leave a like, all that good stuff. And enjoy the fights tonight if you're going, or just watching at home. I'll catch you on the next one.